Evening, everybody. So
Evening.
lovely to see a good turnout. We've got, I think, about 20 people on the call. So 21 people. So I don't know. Everybody we've got here is.
Where's the person who's speaking?
I'll just mute everyone just to make life easier.
No, you're okay. No worries. Okay, so yeah, so I mean, it's just a little bit of a catch up for people who are post solo. Obviously, there's some very experienced pilots on the call as well. So I hope they can add something to it. I apologise now that it's probably a bit dry because it is by the very nature of you know, post solo flying, and what it's really, you know, this is what you need to do to get to. So, oh, Jason, let's mute you again. Can you mute
everyone? Don't worry, I'm just muting everyone, Graham.
Okay, mate. Thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay, let's do share. Okay, and let me do this. So I've put together a short presentation. It's not mega long. As we go through, if there's any questions anybody wants to ask, by all means put your hands up or send a message through the chat so we can answer questions. But I'm happy to take questions at the end. I see we've got Paul, Mr. Witters on as well today, so he probably knows more about this than I'll ever know. So I'll start going through. So really, this is, what do you do after you've gone solo? Because I think in the past, you know, a lot of our training is about how you get to solo, and you know, that's a really big event in people's flying and particularly gliding lives. And I think that's the same for all of us, and a lot of memories for all of us on that. But what do you do after that? And there's always been a bit of a temptation for all gliding clubs to that flies around in the wind a little bit. So we've had a lot of success in the last few years, and as a club forever, really. The amount of people that have gone solo. These are just a few pictures of the more recent people that have gone solo. So it's really getting there, and it's lovely to see. So we've got a lot of people who are wanting to go on and do more. So I thought I'd start by just a little bit of a reminder about what you can do and when you can do it, because I think we all have to sign the operational notes every year, but some of the key things in there that, you know, you really need to take on board is what you can do and when. So if you look in the operating notes, you'll see that the student pilot, I'm going to turn my camera off, I think. Oh no, I won't. I'll leave it on. Everybody can see the screen, can they? Just checking. Yeah, just nod. Yeah, that's fine. Good. That's fine. So we've got the pre-solo, which is what an awful lot of our training effort goes on to in the club. And there are no currency intervals or check intervals for that. It's just using your training syllabus, going through that, understanding what you've got to do, practicing training, and eventually going solo. But once you've gone solo, we don't want you to sort of float around the wind. We want you to understand what you've got to do next. So if you've just gone solo, after you've gone solo, that early solo period, really up to about the first 10 solos, you're on daily currency and daily checks, and there are some restrictions, which are a total of no greater than 15 knots total wind, or no greater than 8 knots crosswind. So that's a very clear piece of guidance. After that, once you're starting to gain more experience, and you've done beyond 10 satisfactory solos, and I think there's going to be a greater emphasis with all of this going forward on getting people into the single seaters, both HUN and HBM, so that people can get more and more used to flying single seaters, because that's where you want to go to be able to do your badge flights and those sorts of things. So when you're at that stage, You then need to start looking at the currency interval of 31 days and a check interval of 60 days. But all I'd say is be honest with yourselves. You know, if there are conditions that you haven't flown in, you're not used to, or you're not feeling so good, or you know you're really tired but you want to fly, so fly with somebody else, fly with an instructor. So the notes, this is all in the operational notes, so and it's only one excerpt from those. So up to that point, this is the requirement, and then after that you're starting to get towards learning and getting your Bronze C with your cross-country endorsement, and then we'll talk about the SPL side, or what was a LAPL S and now SPL beyond that. And then the currency interval becomes 90 days, check intervals 12 every 12 months, possible to be self-authorized, and then of course getting your silver and then starting to go through those things. So that's just a sort of a recap of what you can do operationally. So I should just go back up one. So, but the key really is to become a qualified pilot, you've got to get from solo to Bronze C cross-country endorsement. That's what you're aiming for. So what I've done is to try and concentrate this evening on what you need to do to become that qualified pilot in terms of Bronze C land, as it were. So various things you've got to do. You've got to do a theoretical knowledge bronze test with a pass mark of 75% for all subjects, and I'll list out what those subjects are in a minute. You've got to do 50 solo flights or 20 solo flights, totaling 10 hours flying time. Now, if you came in from with a PPL or something like that, there are situations where that flying time can be halved and all those sorts of things, because previous flying counts towards that. But that's not for this evening's discussion. This is as if you've not done anything. And then you've got to pass the general skills test. Okay. So if we just start off, and I don't want this to sound sort of onerous, because it isn't particularly onerous. In terms of the Bronze C theory test, the exam, there are quite a number of subjects, but they're all relatively straightforward, as long as you read Bronze and beyond. So I think most people have gone solo. There's or prior to solo, have got the student's handbook now that the BGA produce. But beyond that, you've then got the book Bronze and Beyond. Now that I can't recommend that enough. It's a really good book. It goes through all the different exercises and all the theory side. Now, I wouldn't say reading that alone will get you through the Bronze theory paper, but there are also some past papers and general ways of looking at that you can get online, which we can give you advice on. So, but it's all important. This, if you like, is very similar to what the PPL does in terms of the subjects: air law, airmanships, principles of flight, navigation, instruments, meteorology, and human performance and limitations. So there is a bit of bookwork you have to do for this, because to understand where you've got to go, for instance, in terms of air law or airmanship, there's no good flying towards another aircraft and not knowing which way to turn, for instance. I mean, it's basic stuff like that. I won't say it's the easiest thing to do well, but it's far from being the hardest either. But it's the requirement we have to do for the Bronze C. Now, just to put this in context, it's all very well to say you've got to do this or that or the other to get qualified, but really you've got to look at the end goal. What is it going to give you in the end? What are you going to be able to do? So, I mean, to break this up, just to give you some just pictorial reference really as to what you can achieve in gliding. All these pictures have either been taken by myself or people in the club who, you know, we've gone flying, we've done wave soaring in North Wales, we've done cross countries on your own. So there's an aim there, and a lot of that aim is to, it depends on what floats your boat, but your aim is to go get very, very experienced in your aircraft, and then set yourself some goals. Do I want to go cross country? Do I want to soar for a long time and go a little bit of cross country? Do I want to go cross country with other people and enjoy that? So you can go cross country on your own. You can go wave soaring at different sites on your own. and you can have countless moments of exaggerating and telling stories of things that might have been, or testiculating, as some of us well know how to do. So then we get to what you've actually got to do in terms of passing the Bronze C. Now, there's two parts of it. There's the oral side of things, and there's the general skills side of things. So the sort of things that are being tested, and when you're going through, so you're after you've gone solo, as you're gaining flight experience, you're then looking at how you get to the theoretical knowledge of what you're doing, the aircraft knowledge. So it's not just about flying, it's understanding your aircraft, how they fitted together, how they work, how they operate, how they're maintained. You've got to understand and demonstrate an ability to understand the limitations of the aircraft you're flying from the flight manual. So every aircraft has a flight manual, and you should understand at least the key parts of that limit it. And altimetry, understanding understanding altimetry and understanding planning and navigation, all those sorts of things. Altimeter setting procedures, demonstrate practical example in a glider cockpit, all very basic stuff. But unless you feel free to ask, because I can tell you, it took me ages to understand, and I don't know why, when I was learning, that you could alter how you altered I knew how to alter an altimeter, but I didn't necessarily understand the subscale and how that worked in relation to altimetry. And I don't know why, it just didn't click with me. But for years that didn't click with me, and eventually I got it. But I never thought to ask anybody else. Too nervous to ask anybody, silly as it sounds. So pre-flight preparation, daily maintenance, daily inspection regime. So not only are you getting in aircraft after you've gone solo, you're beginning to understand more about daily inspections, making sure that they're safe to fly, inspecting them before you fly. I mean, I know we do that when we're training, but it's gaining more and more of an experience of that. NOTAMs, notice to airmen, so that you can understand that if you're going to go cross country, you're checking what's happening when you're going out there. And then we get to the general skills test. And I say this bit of a dry presentation, but it's not going to take too long, because I'd rather answer questions to a certain extent. So to be specific, and I'm sorry it's dry and listed, but what I can do at the end of this, I can PDF this and send it to anybody who wants to have it, is to actually understand what you've got to do. So there's a minimum of 3 flights in a dual control glider with a full rated instructor who will be satisfied during the BGA Bronze Badge general skills test the candidate's ability to operate the glider within its limitations, complete all maneuvers with smoothness and accuracy, exercise good judgment and airmanship, maintain effective lookout, and maintain control of the glider at all times in a manner such that the successful outcome of a procedural maneuver is never seriously in doubt. Well, oh dear, a long-winded way of saying things. What it really means is, can you control the glider properly? Are you in control? Do you move the stick and the rudders in the right place at the right time and make sure the glider does what you want rather than it flying you? I mean, I think we all have had that experience, that we've flown gliders that, when you get into a new glider, one that's quite difficult to fly, got lots of flaps, lots of undercarriage movements to move, and all those sorts of things. We've all probably flown gliders where we thought, oh, I'm on the edge of not really getting this, even though you fundamentally got it, but it's flying you rather than you flying it. And I think in the general flying skills test, that is incredibly important, that when you're asked to do something, that you can actually do it. And there's more to this that I'll come to in a moment. During the skills test, the candidate must demonstrate appropriate level of practical skill and knowledge. And then those phases and the phase of flight must be assessed. So the sort of things that we will look for when you are doing that practical test. Preparation, i.e. when you're doing those 3 flights or however many takes, are you preparing the glide? Are you preparing the notice to airmen, looking what might affect your flight? And are you assessing and understanding the weather? Lookout and airmanship. The first thing that anybody's taught, easy for me to say, when you're learning to fly a glider is lookout. That's one of the first things that we do when you first get in a glider. That never ceases to be important. And that is one of the things that anybody who's flying with you doing checks, they're looking for all the time. Are you actually looking out? When you do a right turn, have you had a good look right? Have you looked left? Have you done your scanning procedure? We'll do launching. Can you safely control launches? That will be winch launches, which of course most people are very good at because they've done all their training on it, but also are you able to control safely an aerotow? Straight glide. There are still people that we fly with, I think sometimes, who wonder about the sky. Sometimes they wonder because they're being pushed around by thermals, but you know, flying in a straight line is an incredibly important part of becoming a good pilot. And it sounds such a weird and silly thing to say, but it's very true, because you can, as you're drifting across country, be pushed around by the thermals and ending up always missing the thermals because you're being pushed from one bit of sink to the next. So this is all very important. So turning, nice, accurate turning, normal approaches and landing, crosswind approach landing, stalling, including wing drop, spinning. And actually, I don't know whether everybody's aware, but the new Grob twin that's come onto site has got spinning fins. So we will be using that to do some spinning. So the spinning fins, the little winglets on the front that you attach to the front of the cockpit that enable the glider to spin. So we have got facility for spinning now. That won't work for absolutely everybody because there are some weight limitations on that, but it should work for the majority of people now that we can't spin the K-13s. Further spinning, stalling and spinning, and launch failures, at least 2. I love doing launch failures, so I'm always happy to get in the back with somebody doing that. But as I say, for your general skills test, that would be with a full weighted instructor. And then the next part of the Bronze C, if you get through the theory, you get through the general skills test, there's then the cross-country endorsement. So there are some basic requirements for that. Have you passed the Bronze test? Yes. Have you done a soaring flight, the minimum of 1 hour after release? That's another part. Pass the field selection test. Actually, I mean, just to break from my boring voice, Paul, would you like to just explain to people the basics of a field selection test? I think that wouldn't do anybody any harm, if you don't mind, mate. Can we unmute?
Yeah, it's all right. I had a problem unmuting then, but the basics is that we have a classroom session where we talk about what sort of things we're going to be selecting, and then the practical is done in the motor glider, where you have to select and set up an approach to a field, which will be both things we'll be looking for is the field suitable, and is the circuit correctly flown in order to get to that field, so that it's all planned rather than being hurried and made up as you go along. So that's the basis of it.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Paul. So I mean, yeah, I mean, most, if you like, accidents happen when people select a field late. They aren't entirely sure what it's like. They've wished and hoped that they haven't got to land out. But I think most of us that have done quite a lot of field landing make our decisions quite early, and then we stick to them. And that's important. This is all part of the cross-country endorsement. So pass the field approach test ×2. Carry out a satisfactory landing in a defined area, which can be on the airfield, of course. We'll be on the airfield where we'll define an area. And part of the skill of landing in a field is to actually, again, back to the general skills test of being able to understand how to control your aircraft and make it land in the right place. Now, I can tell you a bit of a funny story about this. My first ever field landing was completely away from any of that, because like a clever ass, I decided in April many years ago that I was going to soar around a storm from Saltby Airfield in a K6. So I came off aerotow, and for some reason I saw the tug disappear, the most rapid I've ever seen one disappear in my life, and I wasn't entirely awake that day. And then it started snowing. Well, I can tell you, the wind is always blowing in the same direction when you're flying in snow, because the snowflakes are always coming towards you. Well, eventually I picked a field, and the field I picked, I missed because I was actually downwind. I missed the field and I landed in the next one. I hopped over the hedge at the end. Now, it's not a terribly, I'm not terribly proud of that example, but it goes to show I got away with it. I was lucky. And actually, I hadn't intended to go cross country. It was just one of those I got caught out, which we've all done. You know, a lot of us have done. And you learn from your mistakes. But the training these days, I would also say, is an awful lot more disciplined than it used to be. So it was all a bit suck it and see in those days. But it's good though if you can do it in a satisfactory landing area, defined area on the airfield. Hopefully, when you come to do it in the field, you'll also get it right. And then the final part, navigation. Satisfactory plan and fly a 100-kilometer triangular task. Now, generally, we would do that in the motor glider, but you can actually do it in a proper glider. But of course, the risk of landing out is higher, so we tend to do that in the motor glider. Okay, so once again, get all that done. The aim, the goal is to fly off cross country in beautiful conditions, or fly with other people that you like. Eventually that's part of being qualified and going on to the IFP rating and passenger ratings, flying with lunatics like Daisy there. You'll notice I only put this picture in because how high we were in a thermal over Telford in the summer, nearly 9,000 feet. So I mean, I always find all these sort of pictures joyful. That's why I take them. But so then how do I get an SPL? Now, I've read lots and bits and pieces on this, and occasionally I must say I find the BGA website and a lot of these things incredibly confusing at times, because if you start reading the CAA, the initial thing you start to see is that, oh, you need 75 hours and this rubbish. That was about being commercial, but it's really not very well written, so it's quite confusing as to what you can do. But once you've got a bronze endorsement, cross-country endorsement, a bronze C, or a well, yeah, let me read this rather than gabble. So a minimum requirement for conversion to an SPL, which is what you do, you take your bronze C and convert it to a bronze C, to a bronze C, is a bronze endorsement plus either cross-country endorsement, or if the bronze C endorsement is achieved prior to the cross-country endorsement being established within the BGA, prior to April 1996, verified silver distance issued by the BGA or other national authority. All of that sort of stuff recorded by the BGA, and that's it. We convert. The only thing I'm not sure of is, and Paul, you may be to answer this better than me, is that once we are no longer once we are down the full SPL route, will it be a conversion? I couldn't work it out. I can never remember. Is it a conversion, or can you go straight to SPL as a minimum? Because trying to find a minimum standard for SPL written down is extremely difficult on any of the websites. What's your view, Paul? Sorry, I'm on mute, mate. Still on mute. Here we go. See you.
That's it. Okay, yeah. Once we've made the transition, the BGA bronze and cross-country endorsement will in effect die.
That's what I thought.
And all the training will be done towards the SPL. And the SPL has all the features and the content of what we're currently doing, but in a slightly different order.
Yeah.
So, for instance, there would no longer be a bronze test, but you will have a general skills test at the end of the training, which is the award for the SPL.
But you still do the bronze theory exams, I guess.
Yeah, and that becomes the SPL theory.
Yeah.
And they've been deliberately structured over the past few years to be a simple transition, so we don't have to do anything different.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I thought that was the case, but like all these things, when I was putting this together, trying to find information on the BGA website and actually get a definitive answer, it's actually quite hard. I've got to be honest, crease me.
Yeah, so, the best one is the sailplane rule book.
Yes, I saw that, but I went to sleep before I could actually read.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read.
Yeah, it's not great.
not.
It's not great. So how do you control all those things? This is just, I'm sure that everybody on the call who's post solo has got one of these, but I just wanted to absolutely and utterly make sure that anybody who is flying post solo has got a post solo record card. If you haven't, please come and see us when we're at the club, and we'll make sure that you have got one. And all that stuff that you're heading towards for Bronze C and then SPL in the future is on these post solo cards. So basic areas that will improve your flying, and that's what it's designed to do. Circuits and landings, spot landings, overshoot recovery, undershoot recovery, field landing, approach with side slip. Anybody who knows me knows I love a side slip. Flight without instruments, launch failures, getting more and more used to those because I think some people are quite afraid of launch failures, but actually they are fairly simple because the decision shouldn't be this or that. They should be fairly straightforward. If I can land ahead, I land ahead. If I can't land ahead, I do something else, and the day determines and the process determines that. Assessment for flight, personal recency, currencies, making sure people understand that, understanding Met conditions, and having your own flight goals. The theory side of things, getting that signed off, and the minimum flying time, the general skills test, getting that signed off, and then the cross-country endorsement. And in and around that, there are some basic revision advanced exercises. So all the stuff that you will be tested on for the general skills test. It's all very straightforward stuff. But if you haven't got a post solo record card, then please can I ask you to grab hold of one of those and make sure it's filled in. And then of course that brings you back to the currency, just a reminder. So once you are qualified, yes, it gives you a reasonable gap between currency and checking and being checked, or flying with check flights, but all I'd say that's a maximum. Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're not confident, I know I've said this before, if you're not comfortable with anything, there is no shame in saying, look, can I get in with somebody, or can I ask this question? That's what we're here to do, particularly as instructors or the more experienced pilots. You can talk and ask questions and understand that, because a few helpful things: get up there and soar. The more you fly, the better you become. Get in with instructors, improving your soaring by asking questions and improving your ability. If you're in with an instructor, you should be doing the flying, particularly once you're qualified. When you're trying to improve your soaring, instructors should be giving you pointers in the same direction. We're all guilty sometimes saying, oh, I can get us away from here. And yeah, generally we can. But it's for you to have hands-on stick control. So flying accurately, understanding where the thermal is, and starting to look a little bit more at soaring technique. There's the standard BGA standard technique that we teach at an early stage that is fairly straightforward, but it isn't necessarily the quickest way to get in lift, stay in lift, and achieve a good soaring flight. And there are other methods that, as you become more experienced, become more straightforward and make soaring a lot easier. And above all, we're here to enjoy ourselves. So, enjoy yourself, talk to the instructors, get help, have a bit of fun. That's what it's all about. And what awaits you when qualified? These are a few of the photographs I've taken over the last few years. I was flying with Charles cross country. This was a photograph I took with Richard when we were flying the Janus out of Llewellyn last year, and that's another point. Actually, we have got another Llewellyn trip coming up in April, beginning of April. So if you want to, we're taking a 2-seater there. We're going to do some cross country. Hopefully we'll get some westerly winds this time. Last time it was all easterly. I thought we all went there with a collective groan, but in the end we all had a brilliant week, because we had lots of convergence flying, we had lots of thermal flying, and we travelled all over North Wales in the gliders, having fun. It was a really good week, and I'm sure there are a few people on from that week, and they had a lovely time. And then the picture on the right it appears to be a small person's aircraft. Hello, Shelts, you all right, mate? Uh, so that was myself. I took that photograph of Shelts when we were heading off into North Wales a while back. So this is what we're aiming for. I mean, it all sounds very serious. I mean, there is a lot to do, and it does take a little while to do it, particularly if you're not coming an awful lot. But this is the reward, if you like. So that's it. 35 minutes. Hope so, not too long. As I say, I can PDF this and send this to anybody who wants. If you just drop me a WhatsApp or an email, I'm happy to PDF this and send this off to you as a good sort of aid memoir. So over to you. Any questions?
I have a small list of questions here, Graham.
Thanks. Right, so mute him. Somebody mute him.
Right. So firstly, the 12 and 24-month checks for people who are either silver or at least bronze in cross country.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, does that have to be a check ride of a sort, or does it just have to be a flight with an instructor in the past 12 months?
I think, Paul, do you want to answer that? I mean, for me, it's the same thing, really. I mean, if you've got to have a check ride in 12 months, what's the difference, really? I suppose.
I'm not sure if I'm phrasing the question correctly, because if I had, I don't know, 3 or 4 quick check flights with an instructor at just a circuit, 5-minute circuit off the winch, would that qualify as the 12-month check flight, or does it have to be more extensive? Does it have to, have some structure, some, pre-brief, post-brief, whatever?
Well, I would always do pre and post brief anyway. I think for me, I would expect that from the instructor. But Paul, I think it really comes back to your requirements, because we can set requirements as a CFI and as the club as well. So Paul, perhaps you want to answer that.
Yeah, and as you said, there's a blurring between the two. For instance, a currency flight may be sitting in the back checking you're okay.
Yeah.
The check flight, which is an annual check, is where you'll go through a series of exercises. Now, it could be a well-flown circuit. It could be, for instance, if you haven't done spinning for a long time, it might be go off and do some spinning, or more importantly, spin recovery. So I don't like to call it overly a check, but in reality it is, because we've reasonably relaxed about it. But if you're not up to standard, then that will require further training. So that's where the check element is. But the majority of the time, it's quite friendly. Let's go up, and if you haven't done something for a long time, sometimes even stalling. You talk about people who've got their silver Cs, and you say to them, when was the last time you did a stall? It was probably the checks last year.
Yeah.
So it's configured really to suit you, but it has to be flown to the standard that's required.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, because I think actually I hadn't got the nuance of your question. Actually, I do get it. What you're saying is that the annual checks, but if you're out of currency, what do you do to get back into currency? Do you fly with somebody? Is that a check? So
well, if I look at my logbook and I have 3 or 4 flights with an instructor, which are I haven't got in front of me, but let's say they're just quick circuits, can I assume that I'm within the 12 months, or should I having no? That's
So for me, if you've got 3 or 4 flights that can keep you in currency, or you can keep yourself in currency within the 90 days, and if you're outside the 90 days to get back into currency, of course it would be wise, obviously, and you would require to sit in with an instructor, but that is not the 12 monthly check. I think that's
no. If I'm within currency, I've flown myself within 90 days, but in the last 12 months I had, say, for 3 flights with an instructor, just quick circuits. Can I assume that I'm within the 12 months of a check, or should I make arrangements for a specific annual check with an instructor?
We would want you to do every 12 months a proper formal annual check. I think that's the answer.
That's the answer to the question. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry,
cool.
I got there in the end.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. So with with other licenses and other flying and other things, with the gliding club, I just kind of got to a point where I turn up and I fly. Sometimes I'll fly with instructors. Most times I'll just fly on my own. Not very frequently, unfortunately, because time is always a limit. But I completely lost the plot with licensing. And I think I'm not the only one. I've heard people arguing and tossing ideas back and forth, and I just never made an effort to actually focus and figure out what's going on. So can you see me, Graham?
Yeah, I can see that.
Right. So I've got a thing like this, which was issued to me right in the beginning of my gliding career.
That's your certificate.
The gliding certificate. In that, I sent that back to Leicester, wherever the BGA is, for my bronze and my cross country and things like that to be stamped in and signed in.
Yeah. Now,
around 2020 or 2019, Mr. Fox told me to get a British glider pilot license because of Brexit and whatever else. So I applied and paid, some money and had one of these things. Yeah. Right. So now there is this SPL that's come up.
Yes.
Now, to throw you another curveball, I remember a certain club member who had some medical issues, and he's lost his class 2 medical for his PPL, and he couldn't fly gliders on that, so he flew him on a different gliding license of some sort, and it just all becomes very confusing. So just to simplify things, is this enough, or should I make an effort and apply and send off for another license?
Within that, have you got your Bronze C with cross-country endorsement?
Within the blue one, I have nothing. I have my picture.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I know that, but you have also got your Bronze C with cross-country endorsement?
Yes.
Okay, so if you've got that, you can apply for an SPL, and there's no reason you can convert that, your Bronze C with cross-country endorsement, to an SPL now. You can do that. What's
the benefit?
The benefit is that that's the way it's going, and come, is it next year now? I can't remember the actual date. That date, everybody will have to convert to an SPL. I mean, whether that's absolute now, Paul, because of the Brexit and the ARSA changes and stuff like that, I think there is a date, isn't there?
I think it's October this year.
Yeah.
It's the 8th of December.
Right. So at that point, everybody has to go on to an SPL. There have been the only reason I'm sort of doubting that to a certain extent is that there have been some CAA surveys, effectively, haven't there, about what people want, what they don't want. So at that point, that license you've got won't be valid based on what they're saying now. You'll have to transfer to the SPL, or you'll only ever be able to fly Annex 2 gliders, I think, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason for it is that the EASA recognised aircraft are called Part 21s, and after the change, whatever that change is, we think it's going to be the SPL route. Then you will require an SPL to fly a Part 21 aircraft.
Yeah.
The license that you've got, which is the BGA license, which is only valid in the UK, is only enables you to fly, as Graham quite rightly said, Annex 2 aircraft, which are basically wooden aircraft, which are pretty old.
Okay. But that's coming on December the 8th or whatever. Yes. Right now, the blue thing is still valid to fly in the UK.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Just to also clarify, people who've not yet got a Bronze C or cross-country endorsement will continue to fly effectively as student pilots, can't go cross-country or anything like that, and are under the auspices of being watched and supervised by duty instructor.
Okay. Now, the SPL, is that issued by the CAA or is that issued by the BGA?
It is issued by the CAA at the moment.
Recommended by the BGA.
Sorry, mate?
Recommended by the BGA to the CAA.
Yes. Yeah, so the CAA issue it, but it's via the, is it via the BGA or do you send it off to the CAA? I did mine, I had to send it to CAA, but.
Yeah, you send it to the BGA and they check it, send it on to the CAA, and the CAA issue it straight to you.
Okay, so it's not a rating on a PPL if somebody has one. It's a completely separate license. They're not related. Okay, wonderful. Last very quick question. Just going back to the spin kit on the new glider. The weight limits, are they, are fat people forbidden, or is Dorian not allowed? Which way is the?
It's not a
limitation?
case. It's not a case of a case of that. It's just that as long as you're within the aircraft limits, and there are specific limits for flying with the fins, although it's not dramatically different, I don't think. If it's like the one at Lueni from the normal limit, it's whether it will spin or not.
Okay.
Now at Lueni, I flew in the. I mean, I'm not light by any means with a parachute, 205 pounds. At Lueni, I had to fly in the front because the guy that I was checking out in terms of spinning had to fly in the back, and we could get it to spin. The new aircraft, the fins really are designed to get the glider to stay in the spin as opposed to get it into the spin. They're not the easiest of things to get into a spin. And what I would say is that even when I was flying the one at Lueni, you could get it into a spin, but it had to be a fairly pronounced spin to enable it to spin. To do, some of the classic ways we like to do spinning is to simulate that low, slow final turn, underbanked, and all that sort of thing. That is extraordinarily difficult to do in the grob with the fins. But it's not impossible, but you'd have to have a lighter person in the front to do that. A heavier person, it'll have to be like a fully developed spin in order for people to understand that. So it's not perfect, but it's a good deal better than where we were without the K13s to spin.
Wonderful. That's all my questions. Thank you very much for answering, and I'll mute myself now.
I want to ask a question from you though. Why on earth do you fly at night in the dark, you mad lunatic Polishman?
Yeah.
Why do I fly in the dark?
Yeah.
Well, because it's cool. It's a cool thing to
Can I
do.
point out, I'm Polish and I don't fly at night because I'm not a lunatic. So it's not a Polish thing. It's just him.
Yeah, no, okay, Dorian. I'll take that. I'll take that. I stop the xenophobia now. We'll just reserve that for Piotr.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I mean, I'll piggyback off the SPL question because I've got my cross-country endorsement. I haven't got my silver because I'm missing my 50K because we all know how that went last time I tried.
Yeah.
Is it worthwhile me trying to get my 50K this year, ideally without breaking another tail, or do I apply for an SPL now and then convert it later? Is there any value in me waiting to do my silver now, or should I just get my SPL now and live
No, the Silver Sea has no bearing on the SPL.
You can get the SPL now, so I would get it now if I were you.
Because what happens is we will be running, as in other countries, you have the point where you get a license, and then beyond that, you've got the FAI, which is the Silver Sea, the Golds, the Diamonds, which are entirely separate, and they're not license issues. They are badge qualifications, which are international. So the basic license has no difference whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay.
Graham, are you aware of the costing? So if you have a BGA license and you add on cloud flying or aerobatics, if you have your BGA, you just pay the BGA fees to do that. If you have an SPL, do they have a different fee system for the CAA? So if you converted to your SPL and then did your cloud flying and aerobatics, would it cost you more, or is there a benefit in doing it under the BGA license? I don't know if it's
well, anything, if you've got any sort of add-ons before you apply, then you can apply and it will be added on straight away. But if you've got something like a cloud flying endorsement, that is not an endorsement that has to go on to the license. That you get signed that off in your logbook. It's a bit like when some of us did our motor glider instructor rating. That is a BGA sign off. It's not something that goes into license, because with an SPL, for instance, I've already got a full FI. So the FI system, flight instructor system, under the SPL, you go from a restricted flight instructor rating to a full instructor rating. There is no such thing as an ASCAT on a full CAT. So although I'm an ASCAT, I'm effectively a full CAT under the FI. It's not going to stop me doing my full cat course because it's obviously of major value. But so there are certain things that you add on and you have to pay for, and I don't know what they are. And there are certain things you don't have to pay for. But it's handy if you've already got them. When you apply, they get added straight on.
Yeah, just coming in on that one. It's a wheeze because if you've just mentioned cloud flying endorsement, you still have to pay for that on your BGA license. Whereas a wheeze can be, if you transfer into the SPL, you put everything in at the same time and you only pay one fee.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So that's the only advantage of doing that. The rest of it is you have to pay for each upgrade or change.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember paying for the cloud flying license, but I know I got it. Maybe they missed me. Maybe I did pay for it and I've forgotten it. Blotted it out. Can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it'd be on the BGA scale of charges on the website.
Yeah. I mean, it's not stupid amounts of money, but I hate spending it if I don't have to, for sure.
Have we got a plan for any sort of like post-solo training cards, anything like that? Because I mean, I'm at the latter end of that, but I know I struggled.
Yeah, well, if you remember that, I showed that. That's our post-solo training card.
But that doesn't really take into account sort of cross-country flying, unless I'm missing something.
Well, it takes into account the cross-country endorsement, which is that bit down there.
Yeah. I mean, it might just be me because there's certain things people just don't click with, but
no, that's fair enough. So, I mean, a lot of the cross-country flying is about the navigation, of course, and the field selection testing. So, I mean, what I'd say to all of this is that the best way of getting cross-country experience is to get in with an instructor and go cross-country, or do a bit of a lead and follow. I mean, David Chapman's on the call. We did a bit of that last year, didn't we, David? And that was enjoyable. Neither of us thought we were getting back, but we had good fun.
Could we schedule some, I mean that's a big ask, I know, but could we schedule some more leads and follows? Because I'd love to do things like that and sort of just to feel more confident and more comfortable, especially after my last incident. But
but I mean, more than happy to do that. And just to let people know, I mean, I'm going to be finally working 4 days a week from sort of April onwards, so I will be around a bit more. So if there's gliders and aircraft that we can get into and go together, for instance, even if it's the K-13 or whatever, you know, or one of the twins or whatever, we'll do it. I'm happy to do that if anybody wants to have a go.
Yeah, just picking up on that comment about the record card. The record card is currently reflecting the BGA syllabus.
Yeah.
Towards bronze.
Exactly.
Right. When it comes to the SPL, in effect, the solo, up to solo and post solo record cards will be amalgamated and extended to cover the whole syllabus, which includes navigation, cross country, and so on. Right, because we don't know the detail yet. If it's going ahead, we don't know the detail. So until that's happened, then I'll be sitting down in a darkened room for probably about 4 or 5 days doing the new record card.
Just a question, Graham. We've got a question from Simon. Don't know whether you want to ask it, Simon, or it's in the chat anyway.
Okay.
I was saying, so if everybody has to convert to SPL by December, what is there much point people going towards a bronze then if it's going to be obsolete? Why isn't this meeting called towards your SPL?
Well, because it is called towards your SPL, and the answer is, Simon, that you effectively you do a bronze. You should still be working towards your bronze C, because as soon as you got your bronze C, you can convert that straight to SPL. Once you go to, well, after December, you'll just work the same, more or less the same route to get your SPL rather than your bronze C with cross country endorsement. So there isn't really going to be a vast difference. There will be a slight difference in how they the terminology and stuff like that, but effectively there is no reason to delay getting your bronze C, because as soon as you've got bronze C and bronze C endorsement, you can transfer it straight to an SPL. If you haven't quite got it by the time it comes in, then you just go straight to the SPL. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I was just thinking that it'd probably be a tall order to get everything in through the summer and the cross country aspect to get the bronze.
Yeah, but you don't have to. So there's no urgency. You progress at the pace you want to progress at.
And it'd be great, and loads of fun to get stuck in.
Yeah, for sure.
In the way, doesn't it? And
well, of course it does.
Always choose the worst bloody day to come down, and
yeah. But by the end of it, there's no rush. There's no benefit one way or the other. Just keep on working as you normally do till your bronze C, bronze cross country endorsement. Yeah. If you haven't got that by the time the SPL, it'll go straight into getting the SPL under. I suspect it'll be almost identical, except the terminology will be slightly different. We're not turning out different pilots. We're just the system is merely changing, but it's fundamentally the same.
Simon, just to add to that, obviously I'm not an instructor, but I went through that process a couple of years ago. And once you're at the stage where you've got the hours and you've got the flying in, actually getting your bronze and cross country C, you'd be amazed. It doesn't take that long. The studying, Paul runs a series of lectures, etc. It can do it relatively quickly, if you know what I mean, in terms of your bronze and your cross country C. Because most of the cross country is done in the motor glider. Yeah. You're not worried about the weather, etc. And your bronze theory.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that aspect. I was thinking getting the perfect day to get your cross countries in and what have you.
But you don't need your cross countries to get a cross country endorsement. Your cross country endorsement comes before that.
That's done in the motor glider, yeah.
Yeah. So like just to add to Andrew, like I did my bronze and waited for a while, but just because I didn't want to do anything further than that, and my club wasn't very good at promoting bronze, but I did my cross country and everything to do with it within a year of doing my bronze, and then I got stuck after that was because of uni and other things like that.
Paul and the instructor team, Simon, are really supportive. Once you make it aware that you're keen to get through it, and I was, because I had a goal of getting my SPL because I wanted to do my TMG, and so that was that was kind of gave me a motivation, if you like, to get myself through it. But all the instructors and the team and Paul were really supportive, so you will be able to get through it if you want to.
And surprised.
No, I'm very keen. On another note, this is the first I've heard of a post solo record card. That one's slipped past.
Okay, well,
I've spent the past year really without knowing.
Well, that's not great. That's not great, but that's why we're doing things like this, and that's why I can post this presentation on the website. Why, if anybody wants a copy of this presentation, it's really useful because it just gives you a very basic step-by-step view of what you need to do.
Yeah,
you've also dubbed yourself in there.
Another good point though was the fact that I wanted to do the TMG. That's the other benefit of getting your SPL.
Yeah.
Is you can add your TMG, and we've got the motor glider at the club. We've got instructors now at the club, I believe. We've got that in house. Is that right, guys? Just to confirm, we've got the TMG training can be done within the club and in Shuffle, I believe. So
yes,
that's the other benefit of getting your SPL.
Yeah.
Which is my goal for this year. I want to get that completed because I did my cross country on my TMG, my qualifying cross country, and then weather hit me, and then I've ended up not getting it finished. So I need to get that finished. That's my goal this year. So.
Another pain there.
Not a bloody chance, Andrew.
Not with instructors like you.
Okay, any other questions?
Graham, if I could jump in, 2 questions. Yeah. With the SPL, does the medical requirements change significantly?
No.
Without the SPL, so that's much the same.
So you can either have class 1, class 2, and as long as you haven't got a health problem, you can do a personal medical declaration under the CAA, which has to be done on the CAA website. All of those are absolutely fine for the SPL.
And if you add a TMG to the SPL, can you still just do a personal?
No,
yes.
You need a class. Can you? I thought you needed class 2.
No. Well, not that I'm aware of. I haven't got a class 2. I had a LAPL medical, and now I do an SPL, a PMD. Whether you need it when you first do it or not, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's the PMD.
I got a class 2, but I may have not needed to, but I believe I did. But I'm obviously an expert on the rules.
No, I think it's PMD.
What was going to be the sort of the process? Oh, sorry, David. Sorry.
No.
No, you go ahead. Mine is unrelated.
Oh, okay. And just quickly, so it's clear on the medical. That's not too many problems. Could you just say something about progression past solo, but what are the club rules or training to do dual flying with other club members and passenger flying for, say, family members or visitors, temporary members?
I'm going to let Paul answer that one.
Quite simple. You have to be an IFP.
Introductory.
What?
Which is
Right, which is an introductory flight pilot.
Okay.
Right, now the reason for that is quite simple, in that the insurance requirement is that if you are flying dual with somebody who is a non-qualified person and not a full member of your club, you have to be covered by insurance. Yeah. And the only way to do that is hold an introductory flight pilot rating, which allows you to take passengers.
Which you can only be an IFP under an SPL though, can't you, Paul?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's coming in. It's in already. So an IFP is because it's outside the flight instructor regime. It's something they've come up with. So you don't need an SPL.
Oh, okay.
At that point, it can be post bronze for you to fly it.
Which is different to a
so
BI.
that you know how to handle passengers in terms of how you brief them, what to do in the air, and so on.
Is that a course that the club will offer this year, possibly?
Sorry, there was a cross-cut talk.
Is that a course that the club will offer this year, possibly?
It is. We have Peter Gill and I have been working together on this, and we're in a position now where we can offer it very, very soon.
Oh, excellent. Okay, very good. That's my two questions answered. Thank you both.
It's great that, because that's going to be my follow-up question: is how would someone like me get into sort of becoming an instructor? Because I know I'm probably not at the point yet to become an instructor, but
when hell freezes over, Dorian.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm only joking, mate. Only joking.
No, it's fine.
When you weigh as much as me, you'll be fine.
I just need heavy people to fly in the front seat.
Yeah. Okay, no, it's brilliant. Anything else? Anybody else wants to ask a question?
Yeah, going back to that previous one.
Yeah.
Okay, about taking passengers. That was to do with people who aren't members. Now, what about what level do you need if, let's say, I wanted to fly with Dorian, or I wanted to fly with Pietra, or even Alicia? What level? What do I need to get to do that?
Dual flying, Paul. Again, I think probably best it goes from you.
Yeah, no, we've got a slight issue here, in that if you can fly mutual, and you have to have an individual nominated as P1.
Yeah.
And the P1 is in charge of the flight throughout, and does all, or ensures that they have the handling of the controls below 500 feet. So mutual flying is okay. There's I'm just going to touch upon it because there's a phrase flying around called safety pilots. No such animal. There's either a P1 or a P2. Sorry, there's either a P1 or a passenger. So if once you have got your, well, we're currently looking at the requirement. It's probably going to be a silver for it, unless we look at the having the pure license, but it will be the license plus so many hours afterwards. And that has not yet been promulgated as to when you can get the IFP.
Okay, thank you.
What I would say is it's always difficult when you've got pilots for similar standard. It's obviously very, very key that somebody's nominated as P1 before they go. So that's one thing. But it's always difficult when people are very, very similar in standard and having that very clear understanding of what's going on. You know, it's a bit like when two instructors fly together. You know, you really have, even we, if myself and say Shelts have flown, which we have done in the past, we agree what we're doing and when we're doing it. One will do the takeoff, one will do the landing, and it'll be very, very clear cut. And that is extraordinarily important, that you're very clear what's going on. But anyway, different subject. Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, have you noticed there's 4 Jason Flashes in the call?
Yeah, we've been there, Dorian. It's because he sent his link to everybody else. He's infecting the whole club. Okay.
It's got people here though, hasn't it?
He can do four times as many exhausts this way, I think.
Graham, I know we've touched a little bit, gone a little bit onto licensing. Just one thing for clarification. If you wanted to fly abroad in France or somewhere, does it make a difference between the BGA and the SPL?
Yes. If you want to fly abroad in Europe, particularly, but anywhere, this license is an ICAO license, ICAO. I can't remember what it stands for. And that means you can fly abroad, but flying abroad, generally you need a class 2 medical. They don't do PMDs abroad. So
just on that. So which license is that? Is that the BGA license? Or
no, that's the SPL.
The SPL.
The BGA license is only for
only in the UK. Yep. Thank you.
So one final question then. Is it worthwhile creating like a separate group, even if it's an email group of people who are looking towards their cross country and doing like, things like leading follows or 2-seater cross country flights, or is that something you just work out?
No, I think that could be done. We could have.
I'd be up for that. I'd be up for that, Dorian.
A little
kind of at the stage where you're aiming for silver, basically.
Yeah, so that's post bronze, say aiming for silver, and aiming to do those some cross country flying for sure. We could do that. A little WhatsApp group or something would probably do that. Okay, so we can look at that for sure.
What is the situation on TMG? I touched on it earlier, but are we now in a position where we've got we're able to do the training for TMG? Obviously, we can't examine, but are we able to do the training within the club in Shuffle?
Yes.
I answered that.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
That gives me 2 targets for this year then. Silver and TMG. There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Well, a lot of lovely questions there. I'm quite chuffed because, quite honestly, I thought it was going to be the most boring lecture or presentation I've ever done in my life, to be honest, because there's not a lot you can do with it, make it fun, but because it's fundamentally a list. But hopefully it's been useful to everybody. Just one final question. Is there any other questions? No, that's good.
Sorry, Graham.
Yeah, go on, Mike.
Okay.
Be a long night.
Last minute one. Just a quick question regarding the stuff like in Llewellyn, the Denby flying.
Yeah.
Is it a minimum requirement to have a bronze said to go off, on an expedition up there, or can you just be at any level?
Right. To go there on your own and just turn up and fly there, Llewellyn require you generally to be Silver C
and
above, but that's not entirely the case. So if we do an expedition there, which we did last year and we'll do again this year, we can take a twin and we can take a single seat Astia, and you can fly that under the with the club requirements as per normal, but we will do check flights and stuff when we're there just to make sure people are happy, and that because it's a challenging place to fly, and getting qualified as a pilot does put you more on the route towards that. But on a normal day, Llewellyn is no more difficult than anywhere else. On a challenging day, it's pretty good.
I've flown solo, Michael, quite a lot at Llewellyn, and I've not got my Silver C yet.
Yeah,
but I think it's a case of flying there quite a lot, and Chris then checked me out and then signed me off, if you know what I mean. And same on the expedition with our instructors.
So
it's not a rule, as in you can't fly there without the silver, but you have to be experienced bronze, and then it's at Chris's discretion, effectively.
Yeah.
I don't know how old you are, Mike, but if you join the juniors and go to any of the junior winter series, usually the rule is if you're not silver, you have to do a check flight of the area, and then you can fly there. So
but basically they'll let any old monkey fly there if Andrew can fly there.
And land on the 3-meter wide runway.
Land on the runway, because that's the challenge, and you know that, Mike, I think, anyway, don't you?
Yeah. Well, don't worry, guys. I have missed it occasionally, on obvious days.
It's a great place, and it's a fantastic place to fly, but definitely a challenge, isn't it?
Challenge, but but anybody wants to come in April 7th to 8th, I think, to the 14th, you know, go on, Jace, got a question?
No, I'm just saying I'm getting come along.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, it's putting my hand up.
And with regard to the juniors are at Luennial on the 10th, 11th, and 12th of February. So if anybody's, you know, Dorian, you're there, I'll be there. I'm flying the twin that they've got there. So if anybody wants to come along, let me know.
I'm flying my birth. I can put it back together in time.
Okay, good stuff. Okay. Well, brilliant. I mean, I'm really chuffed that we've had a good turnout. I hope it's been helpful. There are more coming. Peter Gill's going to do Principles of Flight, which I think is very useful for both pre-solo and post-solo, particularly people doing Bronze Sea. I've asked Mike Fox to talk on, you know, planning and, you know, getting into your first thermal and planning for being more successful at soaring, not necessarily the mechanics of how you thermal, but how you sit on the ground and decide what you're going to do to make sure you get a thermal and use it. And then finally, the last Zoom course, there's going to be 4 this year. I'll be doing cross-country navigation and how we do the navigation test. The effective the bit there that says navigation satisfactorily planned and fly 100-kilometer triangular task, that should say, not kilometer time. Okay, so if there's no further questions, thanks ever so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And
thank you
hopefully see you soon on the airfield. Let's hope this cold, dry weather means that we can fly at the weekend. That would be good.
Thanks, Graham.
All right,
See you all later.
Thanks, Graham.
See ya.
Tks everyone.
Thanks,
See you the
Graham.
weekend.
Ta-ra.
Bye.